Why do we eat 3 meals? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But the point in the matter is that we take this for granted. This is the way we live. This is the way we think that it's always been. We have obese people and overweight people because there's too much food available and there's not enough self-control. I can tell you the first 3 days of fasting are fucking brutal. The fourth day yesterday was a joke. I wasn't even hungry. It's really just that with your mind, you can train. Maybe you start doing the intermittent fasting, 12 on, 12 off, maybe 16-8, maybe 18-6. And then you do eat, stop, eat, which is a couple of days a week where you're not eating at all. Maybe you do your first 3, maybe you do your first 5. It's all to say that start somewhere, but understand that fasting is a solution for some of the problems that we're seeing today, that this could cure obesity.
This is the Nico Lagan Show. Warning. This show contains explicit content. Listener discretion is advised. Real, raw, and shooting you straight. This is the Nico Lagan Show. And now your host, Nico.
How many times have you guys heard that breakfast is the most important meal of the day? What if I was to tell you that it's all bullshit? That it definitely is not. And that could be one of the biggest problems that we face when it comes to the way that we eat. This is why today I want to touch on fasting. It is one of my favorite subjects. I've been doing it forever and I've got a shit ton of questions about it. So this is why I want to talk to you guys about it. This episode of the Nico Lagan Show is brought to you by the Alpha Creator Blueprint. Are you a male content creator on a mission to help other men? Is your content not getting the attention that it deserves? Would you want to increase your views by 10, 100, even 1,000? If so, head to the alphacreatorblueprint.com website and let us show you how we can help you. Welcome to the Nico Lagan Show. I am your host, Nico Lagan, aka Mr. Masculinity. Now, let's start from the beginning. Why do we eat 3 meals? Because think about it. Anybody out there, I challenge you. Tell me that this is not exactly what you were told is normal. Tell me that this is not what we consider the norm today. 3 meals. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, supper. Depends if you're French, you're English. But the point in the matter is that we take this for granted. This is the way we live. This is the way we think that it's always been. But let's go into history and allow me to show you that this is not the case. Breakfast, before we get into where breakfast comes from, I want to make this clear. Breakfast has nothing to do with eating in the morning. The only thing that breakfast means is break the night's fast. So basically, breakfast is all about breaking your fast. And as you'll see, as we'll talk about, you can fast, you can break your fast anytime. It does not need to be in the morning. That being said, our eating habits have really changed since the Industrial Revolution. We'll go into that in further detail, but prior to the Industrial Revolution that took place in the 1940s up to 1820s, nobody ate breakfast. Like, it's not a term that was recognized until the 1800s, mid of the 19th century. When the working hours of the laborers were regularized and people had to sustain themselves during the day. Because, when you look at if you look at the system today, even the school system, what's interesting is that it is still based on the Industrial Revolution standards. So you have a bell that starts your classes the exact same way as you started working. You have bells that tell you when to start, when to stop, when your break starts, when your break stop, and when you can go home. So we're basically still, to this day, if you look at history, we are still training we are training our youth in school to go into work, into industries. Sideline, I got sidetracked, but all to say that Breakfast only became popular into the 1900s and was really became part of our life in the 20th century by somebody called John Harvey Kellogg. We all know that name, right? Kellogg, the guy that does the cereal. Well, it's his fault. His fault, is that a good term? Yeah, it's because of him, let's say it that way, that we now know the standard breakfast of today. And funny enough, he's the one that invented, I'm sure you know, but he's the one that invented cornflakes. And it was by accident. Funny enough, he accidentally left spoiled maize and decided to pass it through a roller and bake it. And it gave what we see today as the cornflakes. Before him, we did not have a regular breakfast as we see today. And it's not before the 1920s and the 1930s that the government started to promote breakfast as the most important meal of the day. How many fucking times have you heard that? That breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Well, it turns out that we haven't even been saying that for 100 years now. And it's only into the 1950s that our regular breakfast, like sliced bread, toaster, instant coffee, sugar cereal, invaded the house. When you think about it, the 1920s, 1950s, that's not long ago. That's less than 100 years ago. Think about it. My great-grandmother died. She was about 100 years old, but she died quite a few years ago. So when she was born, there was no such thing. Breakfast was not really part of our day-to-day life like it is today. Like, it has changed. The way we eat has changed so much over the last 100 years. It's absolutely unrecognizable. Now, that's for breakfast. So remember, breakfast simply means breaking the fast. You can have a breakfast at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock at night, does not matter. It just means breaking the fast. It has nothing to do with eating in the morning. Lunch. That's another expression that we take for granted that we use every single day. And funny enough, the origin of lunch is a bit mysterious. Was barely ever used before the 19th century. So again, it coincides with the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that, we did not really have the term lunch. And, you know, if you go back to the Middle Ages, everything was based on light until we had artificial electricity, or electricity that created artificial light. All of our activities, all of our daily activities were based on the patterns of the sun. And this is something that I'll talk about more when it comes to sleeping habits and circadian rhythms. I'll talk about it in a different episode, but all to say that until extremely recently in history, all of what we did were based on we're based on the sun, on the patterns of the sun. And prior to having electricity, that's exactly what it was. So in order to take advantage of the sun, in order to be able to work, people got up early and were working. They were working the fields. They were working before they were actually eating because they did not have time to waste to eat. They had to work. And for most of the people in the Middle Ages, they did not eat before noon. Like, they took a small break after working at least 6 hours. So by today's standards, their day was almost done. Like, they already almost worked as much as the average person today, and they hadn't eaten yet. So by noon, they would take a small break. They would eat something that they called a beaver or a noonshine, which most of the time was just bread and cheese. That simple. And dinner, if we talk about dinner, so breakfast, remember, just means breaking the fast. Lunch was technically, if you look in the Middle Ages, it was the first meal that they ate. So by today's standard, lunch was breakfast. And if you look at dinner, now dinner is something that's been around forever. Even the Romans did it 2,000 years ago, but it did not have the same connotation as it does today. It wasn't done at the same time either. And if you look throughout the Roman Empire and even until the fall of the Roman Empire, which was in 476. People ate a very large dinner. They only basically ate one time. They ate dinner, but it was not at night. It was around noon. So dinner was our lunch. So funny enough, during the Middle Ages and even prior to the Middle Ages, lunch was breakfast because it was the first meal, and often dinner was lunch. So basically, you will see throughout history that breakfast was indeed lunch / dinner. So people ate once a day, or at least their first meal was around noon. And even the Romans ate once a day around noon as well. It is only because of electricity that we started being able to light what we were doing. So we were not as dependent on the natural light of the sun. But all to say that this continued until the Industrial Revolution. Only, and just to put it into context, again, just to make sure you remember, the Industrial Revolution took place between 1760 to 1840. And even back then, like around 1820s, 1830s, 1840s, the more light became available, the more electricity became available, the more the dinner were pushed into the evening, because you did not have the sun there anymore. You did not need it to prepare your food. You could light your house and make food when with the light outside. So, and the fact that people were working, because again, the Industrial Revolution, this is where time was regulated. It's not like before where you worked on your farm. This, you're working for somebody else. You need to be working between a specific time and another specific time, right? So dinner got pushed further and further and further down the evening. But in order to sustain their bodies, because they were working, they were still eating around lunch, and they were also eating a massive meal at night. Because when you think about it, this is all dinner is. If you take it for what it is, your supper is the biggest meal that you eat in your day. Normally, even people that eat 3 meals, breakfast is a small meal. Then you have your lunch, that's not necessarily a big meal, but really at night is when you sit down and you fucking eat a big meal because your day is done, right? And now that we have an idea, I just wanted to give a bit of history as to what breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what they mean, where they came from. But it's all to say that this is the whole point of this is this only started within the last 300 years. Like only within the last 300 years have we really seen the way we eat really change, and it accelerated, as we're going to cover, over the last 100 years. But when you consider that 300 years over hundreds of thousands of years of human existing, it is only a drop in the bucket. It is just a tiny little fraction of our whole human existence as a species has changed, extremely changed over the past 300 years. Now, one of the biggest problems that you'll see, and one of the biggest reasons that the way that we eat change so much, is because of food availability, because it's become easier and easier for us to obtain food without having to work for it. Because if you think about this, during the Middle Ages, peasants often were limited to what they could grow. So whatever they had on their farm, whatever they can grow, whatever they had for animals, this was their main foods. And the main thing they ate were bread made out of grain. They would eat a stew called pottage, which was made from beans, peas, and onions. The only sweet things that most peasants had back then were berries and honey and nuts, all things that they would collect themselves in the woods. So what did they eat? It's not much when you consider it. They ate bread, they ate grains, they ate peas, beans, onions, and whatever else their farm was capable of giving them. This is what they ate. And it's not until the Industrial Revolution that families did not have to provide for themselves. Because when you think about it, until the 1820s, families had to provide for themselves. They were all of the fruits, the vegetables that they would eat were grown on their farm. They would process their own meat. So chicken, beef, pork, those were animals that they had, that they fed, that they had to kill, that they had to actually clean in order to prepare it for eating. And I've always wondered, this is a question I've wondered for a very long time, how many people would still eat meat if they had to raise the animal, kill it, clean it? But I digress. This is a different story. But all to say that until the 1820s, you ate what you had. And there was such a thing as seasonal diets. You ate what was available in that period of time. So in the springs, in summer months, they would eat more fruits, more vegetables, because this is when they were growing. That's when they were in seasons. And during the winter months, they would eat what they were able to preserve. So when they weren't able to grow food, guess what? They would eat their preserves. So when you think about it, they did not have access to the food that we have today. This is clear. And this is, again, we're talking about the 1820s, 1840s. We're not talking thousands of years ago here. We're talking 200 years ago, 205 years ago. Most Americans in the 1920s lived on a farm. They had to do what they did on a daily basis was attached to their survival. They have to grow their own food. They have to take care of their animals. They have to make their own clothes. It's, they say that boys and girls living on farms had specific jobs. So they had, we call them chores today, which I would argue that most kids don't have them, but they had shit to do. Everybody was fucking working on the farm. Everybody had to do their part in order for the family to survive. And again, it's not until the 1820s, it's not until the Industrial Revolution that even clothes was mass produced. So 200 years ago, you did not go to the corner store, start picking up all of your clothes, pick up some food for tonight. Most people had, if you were a peasant, if you were just a regular person, if you were not rich, you had to take care of your shit. You had to make sure that your family was surviving. You needed to take care of your food, your needs, your family's needs. And guess what? This took most of your fucking time. You weren't wasting all of your time sitting on a couch doing nothing. I can guarantee you that. And it's only until about 100 years ago that the grocery store as we know it today exists. Like the first real grocery store as we imagine it today, where you have aisle of food, you have people there to cash you out, was invented in 1960s. That's just over 100 years ago. So until about 100 years ago, we were not dependent on the food chain. We were not dependent on massive corporation to bring us our food, bring us our clothes. 200 years ago, we made our clothes. 100 years ago, we were still taking care of our shit because think about it, grocery store did not exist the way that they do today. This is a very, very new thing. And it took a lot of fucking time, which, Dr. Peterson talks about this all the time, that one of the bigger problem that we have today is the fact that we have too much time on our hands. That depression is caused by having too much time. I absolutely fucking agree with him. And this is why back then, 100 years to 100 years ago, people did not have fucking depression the way they do today because they had so much shit they needed to do on a day-to-day. They had so many shit to do on a day-to-day that they were always occupied. Their mind was always occupied because they needed to fucking survive. Now, let's get into the meat. That's an interesting choice of word, but let's get into the meat of the subject. Fasting. because this is why we're all here. The whole point of this was to give you a bit of a history so that you can understand where I'm going with this. It seems that throughout history, Romans were, I'm not saying the first one, but they were the most known one to do this. They believed that it was healthier to only eat one meal a day. They were obsessed with digestion, and eating more than one meal a day was considered gluttony. So when you think about it, Romans were in power 2,000 years ago. So it's not something that's brand new. But it wasn't necessarily called fasting back then, because fasting can be traced to about 500 BC by the father of medicine himself, Hippocrates. He made a lot of recommendation when it came to food abstinence. He believed that this would help with health condition. It's not until the mid 1800s that in his book, The Science of Living, Dr. Dewey made the claim that most illnesses are dietary. And this sparked a massive interest in fasting. In the 1900s, researcher began to take a huge interest in the effect of fasting that it had on obesity specifically. And in 1915, Folin and Dennis began. Jesus Christ, I'm having problems with my words. So in 1915, Folin and Dennis began to recommend multiple short starvation sessions. They claimed that it would be very effective for weight reduction, and that they also only recommended long session of fasting for extreme case of obesity. Now, we'll review those stats later on, but keep this in mind. Dr. Dewey, by saying that most illnesses that we face are dietary in nature, I will show you why he was absolutely fucking right. He hit the nail right on the head. He was way before his time, but he was absolutely fucking accurate and correct. Now let me hit you with some knowledge. The US population is estimated at about 330 million. 31% of Americans right now are considered overweight. That's about 100 million people. 42% of Americans are obese. That's about 140 millions. Only 27% of Americans are considered in a healthy shape. That's 90 million. There's more obese. There's almost twice as much obese people than healthy people right now in the US. How fucked up is that? There's more overweight and obese people. There's 3 times more people that are out of shape than people. You know what? It's 27. 4 times more people out of shape than people that are. How fucked up is that? That 3 out of 4 individuals in the US is not in a healthy shape. And if you think that that's a North American problem, guess again, because it is not. The WHO reports that more than 1 million people right now, the WHO reports that more than 1 billion people worldwide are obese. As per advisoryboard.com, they predict that the current rate of obesity, that is 14%, at least that's per the last statistics in 2020, will rise to 24% in 2035. Within 15 years, we will see an increase of almost 200%. It will literally double. We will see the obesity rate for the next, between 2022, 2035 is predicted to double. That's more than 2 billion people will be considered obese within the span of the next 12 years. It is such a problem that among boys, obesity rates are at 10% right now. And again, those statistics come from 2020, which was the last time they were taken. They are expected to double by 2035. That means that by 2035, 1 out of 5 boys will be obese. See, this blows my fucking mind. This is literally, we have obese people and overweight people because there's too much food available and not enough, there's not enough control, self-control, if you will. How fucked up is that we currently live in a world that we have so much fucking food available that it is killing us. It is we are literally killing us because we are killing ourselves because we have too much food available. How much sense does that fucking make? Talk about not being very good at managing our responsibility. This is why I think fasting is such a beautiful solution, because as you'll see, I will get into more detail. I want to go over, before we go any further and I tell you why fasting is so good, let me tell you a bit about the methods of fasting that you'll find today. There's a lot of them, but I got maybe the 4 most popular, and I've tried them all. I'm telling you right now, I have tried all of them, and we'll talk. If you guys have questions, let me know. I'm always here to answer questions. If you're not asking the question right now, hit me up on all my socials afterwards. I will happily answer any questions that you have regarding fasting, because this is such an important solution that could change the fucking world. Now, there's the most popular type of fasting is intermittent fasting. I know you guys heard about it. It's everywhere now. It's like a fad. It's very popular now, and there's good reasons why. There's normally 3 types of intermittent fasting. At least the 3 more popular intermittent fasting types are 12-12, 16-8, and 18-6. What does that mean? That simply means, think about intermittent fasting about an extended portion of time where you're not eating, and then a portion of time where you're eating. That's it. That's all intermittent fasting is. When I call it 12-12, that means that for 12 hours, you're not consuming any calories. So basically, all you're doing is drinking water, black coffee. Like, there's no caffeine, and most teas don't have calories either. So for 12 hours, you're not consuming any calories. You're just drinking liquid with no calories. And for 12 hours, you're eating. 16-8, same principle, except for 16 hours, you're not consuming any calories. For 8 hours, you're eating. And then you have your 18-6, which is 18 hours without any calories, only fluid like water and black coffee. And then 6 hours, you're eating. Now, you have a method that I discovered years and years ago that's called Eat, Stop, Eat. Basically, the method states that you eat you take 24-hour fast once or twice a week. So basically, Eat, Stop, Eat means for 24-hour period, once or twice a week, you're not eating at all. Again, just fasting. Then you have your 3 to 5 day fast, which are a lot longer. And then you have your 5-day fast, which again are a lot longer. A 5-day, I can tell you, I just tried my first one now, and it was not an easy thing to do. And in further podcasts, I will go into more details about it, but just take my word on that one. Intermittent, the 5-day fast is not easy, although the 3 days, to me, 3-day is a perfect amount of time to fast. It's perfect. But all to say that you have your intermittent fasting that is 12-12, 16-8, 18-6. You have your Eat, Stop, Eat, which you stop eating for 24 periods at a time, once or twice a week. And then you have your 3-day fast and your 5-day fast. Now, why should you fast? Because at the end of the day, we don't do shit for no reason, right? So why would you want to fast? In my case, the reason I started fasting, and I can tell you right now, I've been fasting for 5 to 6 years. I stopped counting after 5 years, but I've been doing intermittent fasting, the 16-8 for more than 5 years. And over the recent months, over the recent weeks, I've even started only eating 1 meal a day. So my fast right now, 99% of the time, is more like 22 hours eating, 22 hours fasting, 2 hours eating. So I really don't eat often, but when I eat, it is a feast. Just let me tell you that. The amount of food, I'm going to post a picture today of what I eat in one sitting. It's absolutely fucking crazy, the amount of calories that I'm able to eat in one sitting. But when you consider it, the reason why I started fasting years ago is that I realized that our body is always in a state of fed. Our body is always working. When you think about it, our society is so obsessed with eating that we are always fucking eating. Think about it. The first thing that most people do when they get up in the morning, they make themselves a coffee, which they very rarely have I seen people drink black coffee. I'm not saying they don't exist, but the average person will have milk, cream, sugar in their coffee. So right there, you're breaking your fast because you're eating calories. As per a study from Ohio State University, only 15% of people skip breakfast. So basically, first thing in the morning, people eat. It doesn't matter that it's sugar, that there's sugar drinks like coffee. It doesn't matter that you're eating a full meal. The point in the matter is that 85% of people today eat breakfast. As per the Sleep Foundation, 70% of people eat before going to bed, like within 2 hours. So 70% of people eat a snack or a meal within 2 hours of going to bed. As per the Mayo Clinic, it takes 6 to 8 hours for food to pass through your stomach and small intestine, and it can take up to 36 hours for food to move through your entire colon. So what does this all mean? Basically, what this means is that if it takes 6 to 8 hours to digest your food, that means that, and most people eat right as soon as they get up and until the time that they go to bed. That means that the average person sleeps 6 to 8 hours. That means that within their sleep, their body's digesting. Throughout the day, your body's digesting. I would argue that 99% of people out there are always in a fed state. Your body is always working, digesting your food. So that means that you're never giving your body a break. Your body is always fucking working. And anybody involved in fitness knows this, that you need to give your body a break. If you're hitting the gym 5 times a week, you need to sleep at night. You need to give a couple of days for your body to recover, because when your body is not working, it's when it's capable of repairing itself. Like in training, if you're building muscle, you're breaking your muscle fiber. And then when you're at the gym, you're breaking your muscle fiber. You're breaking your muscle fiber. And muscle is made by your body repairing that muscle fiber. But if you're never giving it a break, or you're never sleeping, guess what? Your body cannot regenerate itself. And it's astonishing that this is not a known fact, that the average person does not understand that their body is always in a working state. It never takes a break because you're always fucking feeding it. We're not even hungry and we're fucking eating. We're bored, we eat. We associate food with pleasure. So it is an emotional response. We see food as our emotion. We are literally eating our emotions. And this is the case for almost 75% of people. This is fucking crazy when you think about it. Because we have the power to change that. And fasting is the best way, in my opinion, to do this. This is the best way you can give a break to your body in order for it to repair itself. Now, let's get into more of the specific about this. There are 4 stages of fasting. You have your fed state. You have your early fasting stage. So fed state is number 1. Early fasting stage is number 2. Fasting stage is number 3. And long-term fasting stage is number 4. The number 1 stage being the fed state normally occurs between 1 to 3 hours. During this period of time, your glucose level will increase as your body digests and absorbs your meal. This leads to a rise in insulin secretion, which insulin helps regulate blood sugar level to provide cells throughout the body with a steady stream of energy. You'll understand why insulin is so important to a lot of the disease that we see today, and why insulin control is so important when it comes to fasting. So that's your stage number 1. Your stage number 2, early fasting state, normally occurs between 3 hours and 18 hours of your last meal. During this stage, your pancreas begin to secrete higher amounts of hormones called glycagon, which helps prevent blood sugar from dipping too low. Additionally, insulin levels drop and the body begins using glycogens. Glycogen is a form of glucose that is stored in your liver as an alternative source of energy. Basically, it comes from the carbohydrates that you eat are responsible for glycogen. So the glycogen comes from your carbohydrate. Your glucose is what happens when your body processes the glycogen or the sugar or the glucose that is stored in your liver. And what's amazing about that part is that your body starts depleting. So within the 3 to 18 hour gap, your body starts depleting those reserves. So whatever your body has stored in your liver as the main source of energy gets used within the first 18 hours. So remember what we said, takes up to 8 hours for your body to digest, up to 36 for everything to be dumped in the toilet, for lack of a better term. And around 3 to 18 hours, your body is burning all the stored glycogen that you have within your body. This is where stage 3 is where it gets extremely interesting. And this is why I do intermittent fasting day in, day out. And I've been doing it for so long. It's because of what happens when you enter the fasting state, which is normally between 18 to 48 hours. So it occurs about 18 hours since your last meal and can last up to 2 days, 48 hours. Because your glycogen levels or your glycogen stored, Jesus Christ, the glycogen that is stored in your body has been depleted. So your body has used it all. And at this point, it starts breaking down your stored fats. I'm sure you've heard of triglycerides before. This is the fat that you have stored within your body. But after 18 hours, instead of using your stored glycogen, your body starts converting your stored fats into energy. This causes a state that is called ketosis. I know that you've all heard about the keto diet. And this is the whole point of the keto diet, is to not eat carbs, or at least no more than 30 to 50 grams of carbs, in order to try to put your body in ketosis. So you eat high amount of fats, low amount of carbs, low amount of protein, so to kind of trick your body into turning their main source of energy into burning fats instead. Now, one thing that's absolutely fucking amazing about ketosis is, like I said, the fact that it burns the stored fat that you have in your body. It starts using that as your main fuel. So you can see how this is incredible for losing weight, for losing fat, because literally your body will need it. If you stop eating for 18 hours or more, up to a period of 48 hours, it will burn itself. It will eat itself and get rid of your fat for you. You don't even need to do anything else than simply stop fucking eating. Now, another thing that happens in that period of time, that 18 to 48 hour period, and this is the part that blows my mind. This is the part that I absolutely fucking love. Your body starts a process called autophagy. Autophagy is a catabolic state which cleans out your damaged cells and replaces them with healthy ones. So after 24 hours, your body starts doing something called autophagy, which the main purpose of it is to take all your dead cells and replace them by healthy ones. You are basically repairing your body. By not eating, you are burning the fat that you're storing. You are also allowing your body to start repairing itself. How fucking magical is this? Why is this not proposed by every single fucking doctor out there? And the worst part is that basically anybody can do this. It doesn't cost any money. On the contrary, you're going to save fucking money by fasting. Now, as per nutritionist and TRE researcher Yumera Yashed, research suggests that autophagy may have a protective effect against aging, cancer, and other diseases. Here's a mind fuck for you. Some researchers believe that autophagy could extend our lifespan and slow signs of aging. We pay thousands and thousands of dollars in surgeries to look younger. Women especially spend so much time trying to look younger. And yet it seems that we could do it for free without eating. How fucked up is that? Now, let me talk about the fourth stage of fasting, which is called the long-term fasting, which is 48 and above. This is where shit gets real. This one is not easy, let me tell you this, but the advantage of this is that insulin level will continue to drop. And in this phase, the ketosis state will continue to increase. Ketones will start being the main source of energy. And your body will eat itself again. How fucking amazing is that? So around 18 hours, you start entering a ketosis state, which your body is switching from using carbs to fat as its main source of energy, and it will continue to do this. And the further you go into time, the more it will happen. And can you see how absolutely crazy this is? Because again, it is the easiest thing that you can do. It literally takes nothing except to stop eating. Now, let's review the benefits of fasting. One, it regulates insulin level. Why is this important? Because if you look, there's two types of diabetics out there. There's type 1, type 2. Type 1 are born with a defect where their body does not produce enough insulin. So they have to inject insulin in their body. This is something that they'll probably have to do, at least with today's medicine. This is something that they'll have to do for the rest of their lives. Now, what's great about this is that I think it's 90%. I don't know that I should be saying those numbers, but I'm pretty sure that it's something around 90% of people with diabetes that are diabetic or type 2 diabetics. Type 2 diabetics is when your body gets, it's when your own body creates an insulin, not protection, but it stops accepting your own insulin. So it kind of creates a barrier against your own insulin, which means that you need to find another form of insulin in order to live. Because as we said earlier, remember what we said, while your glucose level, while you're digesting and absorbing what you ate, your insulin's job is to regulate your sugar level. And I'll do another episode on this, because that's another thing that I stopped eating. I stopped eating processed sugar. But every time you eat sugar, it spikes your insulin, because your insulin is trying to regulate the amount of sugar that's in your body. So imagine for diabetics, they don't have the insulin, or their body is rejecting their own insulin. So this is problematic. But with fasting, you can bring that, you can help through fasting to regulate your insulin level. Again, you have your ketosis, which help with fat loss and burning fats as your main source of energy. You have autophagy, that is literally being seen as a way to extend your life. There's a couple of things that I did not mention in this live because I only have so much time, and I'm already fucking running 46 minutes when I normally just run for 30 minutes. But hey, I love this subject. So two of the things that also happens during fasting is cognitive functions enhancement, neurogenesis, and synaptic plasticity. It helps with the health of your brain. It will help you think clearer, think better. And one of the most important part about intermittent fasting, 3-day fasting, 5-day fasting, which is another thing that people don't talk about, is mental toughness. It ain't fucking easy not to eat. I can tell you that much. I didn't think I would talk about this today, but I tried my first 5-day fast this week. Yesterday, I was about 100 hours in, so I hadn't eaten. I was on my 5th day of fasting, and I started feeling lightheaded. I ended up going to the bathroom to pee, fucking lost consciousness in the tub. Like, this is not a joke, but turns out that I wasn't drinking enough. Although I was drinking a lot, I wasn't paying attention to my body. And I think the stupidest thing I did yesterday was I had to go give blood. All the men out there, get your blood tested. Every 6 months now, I get my blood tested. I get a panel of results, and we assess with my doctor to make sure that everything is good. Everything is going well with my body. So probably that getting blood taken out on my 5th day on the end of my 4th day, beginning of my 5th day of fasting was not smart, because I do have to admit that I started feeling weak after that. But hey, all to say that mental toughness is great. It will help you gain control on your body, because I can tell you the first 3 days of fasting are fucking brutal. The 4th day yesterday was a joke. I wasn't even hungry. It's really just that with your mind, you can train. Maybe you start with a 1 day. Maybe you start doing 12-12. The intermittent fasting, 12 on, 12 off. Maybe 16-8. Maybe 18-6. And then you do eat, stop, eat, which is a couple of days a week where you're not eating at all. Maybe you do your first 3. Maybe you do your first 5. It's all to say that start somewhere. But understand that fasting is a solution for some of the problems that we're seeing today, that this could cure obesity. And remember Dr. Dewey in the 1800s, he said, he was basically the first one to say, at least that I could find, that most of mankind's illnesses are dietary. And it is amazing that he was right, because as per the CDC, these are the effects of being overweight or obese: high blood pressure, high LDL cholesterol, low HDL cholesterol, and a high level of glycerides. That's the fat stored in your body, remember? Type 2 diabetes, coronary heart diseases, strokes, gallbladder disease, sleep apnea, many types of cancer. And if you think that there's no correlation between food and cancer, you're sadly fucking mistaken, because they are. And let me tell you what they are. 684,000 obesity associated cancer happens in the United States every year, this includes 210,000 amongst men, 470,000 amongst women. Breast cancer after menopause is one of the main cancer caused by obesity. And we hear about it all the time, don't we? We're always hearing about this type of cancer, breast cancer. And for men, it is colorectal cancer that is the most known cause cancer by obesity. But the things that I really want to point out are the death that are caused by obesity. Heart disease. So these are the main causes of death as per the CDC in the US right now. Heart diseases, 695, more than 695,000 people die of heart diseases every year. Cancer, 605,000. Strokes, 162,000. Respiratory diseases, 142,000. Alzheimer's disease, almost 120,000. Diabetes, more than 100,000 people. Are you starting to understand how many people are dying from what they eat, from the amount of food that they eat, the fact that they never stop fucking eating, that they're always in a fed state? Let's not even talk. I'm not even going to talk about the fact that we're not exercising enough. But remember what I said earlier, about 27% of people are considered in a healthy shape in the US. And all the benefits I listed about fasting could help every single one of them. It is one of the easiest solutions that we can implement. There's so many ways to get started into fasting that there's really no reason that we are not talking about this, that we're not bringing awareness to this, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to give you medical advice. I'm just here to make you realize that there are options out there that you can do that can change your life, because they have changed mine. It is amazing. It's been 5 years. I'm fucking 41 years old with a six-pack. I'm in better shape than 99.9% of 20-year-olds. Why is that? Because of what I eat. And I can tell you that fasting, I've been hitting the gym for 21 years, but massive changes started happening when I started fasting. Because another thing that I did not share, and this is another thing that's not shared very often, is that they say that within a 3 to 5 day fast, your growth hormones level can rise to 2,000%. It costs about $400 for 1 milliliter of growth hormones. And you can obtain it naturally. And this is one of the main reasons that I do 3-day fast, or I'm going to continue doing 3 and 5 day fast, is really because it allows my body to repair itself, and it increases my level of growth hormones, which, as somebody that wants to build more muscle, is great, and it is done naturally. I want to take the time to take a question. Oh, actually, I'm just going to go check the Instagram to see if I do have questions, because I was so obsessed by what I was saying that I wasn't paying attention, but I will take the time that it takes in order to answer your questions. Now, let's see. John Hoig says to fast is to obtain from both tangible list and non-tangible mental, emotional, caloric. Both provide a metabolic role. Both can become conditioned. I agree, brother. It is amazing. I can tell you right away that it is absolutely amazing, and it will help you both physically and mentally. And God fucking knows that we need more toughness, mental toughness in this society that we're living in, because we are fucking weak. Somebody else says, sometimes I don't even eat at all. You know what? If it's done for the right reason, I totally agree, because I normally just eat about 4 hours a day now. So I get it. And the results are just amazing. Now, Justin Manning says, by design, sick care system can have people wake up. And it is true. There is a doctor that I cannot remember his name. He is a cardiologist out of Florida. He talks about this all the time, that the reason that fasting is not pushed more to the masses is because of two things. One, the healthcare system needs customers. Customers are sick people. So they need to have people to be sick in order to make money. Pharmaceutical companies being the main responsibility of this, the main causes of this. And the other reason that fasting will probably never get pushed to the mainstream is because of those massive corporations that are like Kellogg that are telling you that you need to eat in the morning, that the breakfast is the most important meal of the day. They have a lot of money to lose if you stop eating. So, of course, it's never going to be talked about. Now, Alain, I got a guy I've known for years that's asking me a question. We were talking about this yesterday, so let's answer that question, Alain. If you're fasting for 12 hours or more and you eat a lot for 2 hours or more, depending on how many hours you fast, the load of your food that you eat after the fasting, it's not too much depending on your stomach digesting system. No, absolutely not. This is what I've been doing for years. You know, that same doctor from Florida that I apologize for not remembering his name says that all the time. Your body should always be in two states. Either you're in a fasting state or you're in a fast state. You're either you're either in a fasting state or a feasting state, meaning that you're either not eating for long periods of time, and when you're eating, it's a fucking feast. Because think about it, Alain. Think about prior, when you only had to go to the grocery store. Sometimes people would go without food for days because they didn't have money. They didn't have accessibility to food. Maybe they were hunters that weren't able to hunt. They weren't catching any animals. Maybe that they weren't able to find berry, nuts, honey, something to help them out with eating. So they would go a lot of time without eating, which means that when they did eat, they ate a lot. Like it was a feast. Because think about it. Not only is food fun to eat, you need that calorie intake. Your body needs it. So again, Alain, no. Again, maybe we're not there at the beginning of the podcast, but I was saying this, that you should see the amount of food that I eat. It's absolutely incredible. Like my girlfriend is always fucking amazed at the amount of food that I can ingest in one sitting. But that is because I only feast. I'm either fasting or I'm either feasting. And you know what? One of the other benefits that I haven't talked about is really the fact that it makes food more enjoyable. If you're always eating, you don't understand how lucky we are to eat, how fun it is to eat, because you take it for granted. I didn't eat for more than 100 hours. When I ate yesterday, it was almost orgasmic. It was almost sexual. The food that I eat every day tasted so much better just because I went without it for so long. Now, that being said, this is just the first time I'm going to talk about this. I really want to take the time to go into further details, into going in all the type of fasting that that exists out there, why you should do it, how you should do it, which ones are better depending on who you are. But the point in the matter is that I really want to go into more details about this, and this is just the first time I speak about it. So if you do have questions, please hit me up. If you are curious about stuff, hit me up. I really want to answer your question. Leave me some comments. I'm there to help, because this, I strongly believe, is one of the best things that our society can do today. And we need to do this for our kids too, because the obesity level is just astonishing. It's just crazy, and we need to do something about this. So on that note, I want to thank every single one of you out there for listening to this. I want to thank every single one of you out there that comments, that likes my stuff, that is just giving me, you know, those messages that you send me telling me that you love what I post. I fucking absolutely love them, because you need to know this, that I get a lot of hate comments every day, multiple times a day. I get people sending me some messages that are just not nice, comments that are just awful. And you know what? It's because of you guys that I continue doing it. So thank you for being there. On that note, always remember that the world is changed one man at a time, and it takes just one man to change the world. Peace out, everybody.
You've been listening to the Nico Lagan Show. Nico has been involved in the martial arts for 20 years. He's a Muay Thai coach, focus coach, podcaster, and sought-after public speaker. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope you've gotten some useful and practical information. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Coach Nico Lagan and on YouTube at The Nico Lagan Show. See you next time.